Karachi is, baying, they are requesting for good roads. And in Lahore, people are cynical about good roads. They're like, another road built, so what? When they are, if you go to Karachi.
Embarrassment of the riches.
The embarrassment of riches. Political leaders, all of them, have to begin believing in democracy. For them, I think most of them, it is merely a way to get them into power. To start holding the provincial governments accountable.
I think we know by now how to do it and how not to do it.
How not to do it.
You also served as Minister of Defence.
Yes, precisely.
What was that like?
One of my most pleasant experiences. I consider it one of my
civilian,
ministerial...
The constitutional civilian boss of our valiant armed forces and Ministry of Defence.
Knowledgeable persistence that got me through. Not to outsource defense and security just to the armed forces. So actually Modi happened to Pakistan's trade relations. One of the reasons that we are not growing, there is no TTA or TTP, it's just TT.
I think that's something that the entire nation can stand behind.
Whoever is sent to Afghanistan as ambassador of Pakistan should always wear a suit and a tie. As Max Weber says, that only the state holds the monopoly on legitimate violence, conscious delegitimization of politics. So the future is irrational. Young supporters of these fascist parties are also justifiers of violence. Pakistan's transparency and wisdom.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Context with AasiyaRiaz. It is my privilege to welcome today on my show Mr. Khurram Dastgir-Khan, a former MNA and a Federal Minister for Commerce and Defence. Khurram is an engineer by profession. He is also a politician who's a rare blend of intellect, articulation, and deeply read human being on poetry and prose alike. Khurram has had a long political career. He has served as Secretary to Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif and also as a political worker. His experience is very, very varied. Welcome to the show, Khurram. Khurram Sahib, you hail from Gujranwala, and it's a city which is known for wrestling and humor and pehlwan and kasrat, yet I know you to be somebody who's very well read, both in prose and poetry. And I've seen you to be somebody who's a rare blend of intellect and great communication, not just as a human being, but also, in your professional capabilities as a parliamentarian, as a minister. I've seen you done wonders with all your work. So where did you get that sensibility? Where did you get that, that yearning for art and culture and poetry and all growing up over there?
Thank you very much for the compliment. But Gujranwala is not just a city of wrestlers, it's a city of Amarta Preetham. She was born there. Noon Mim Rashid was born there, one of our great Urdu modernist poets. So it has probably one of the great Punjabi poets of the 20th century, Dr. Fakir Muhammad Fakir was born there. So there have been researchers and poets. I would credit to my late mother, who was a reader, who was, even in the early 50s, one of the rare, women graduates. She had a BA degree from Lahore College for Women. So she was a progressive person, and so she taught her children to read and to appreciate poetry. She was actually a Punjabi writer. She used to write in Punjabi, which I still can't do, can't even read it properly. But she used to read and write Punjabi. So yeah, there is some root. I think there was some predilection that I picked up and carried on and had these opportunities through my education. Again, which is very I still find it a miracle that I ended up in the US and had exposure to all kinds of arts and performance art sculpture.
Yet you were studying a subject which is completely contrary to that in general understanding. You're an engineer by profession.
Of course. But interestingly, in my sophomore year, which is the second year in university, my roommate was a music major. So through him, I was introduced to classical music. He was studying Beethoven symphonies that semester. So as he went through, he took me through them. So, I would go back to our apartment and he would be listening to something and I would say, "What's this? What are you listening?" So he would explain it to me and somehow I caught on too. And so these are things that, my interest in art came also that there was, I read a notice in the college that there was a group is going that weekend. There was a blockbuster Monet exhibition at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston back in when I went, 89 or 90. So I went on that exhibition just to see what is it all about. And so I still carry that art appreciation with me after so many years and having gone through. So yeah, something must have been there naturally also. And then I had the opportunity to develop it. I wouldn't call them finer things because my view of art, essentially I've ended up with Friedrich Nietzsche, who said, "We have art so we may not perish from the truth." So my interest in art and literature is to help me survive the political truth that I live every day.
So what's your message to young people? How do you talk to them about why it's so important for them to understand what public life and policy and democracy means to them? And why do they need to be so interested?
One of the things that I found amusing, very frankly, when talking to young people, is to demonstrate to them that their sense कि ये कोई गंदा काम है, when in fact they are put in the same situation that politicians are put in. I found them behaving in exactly the same way, making the same kind of bargains, same kind of understandings, nudge, nudge, that they usually bemoan in actual politics. So one of the things was that it is actually just politics is part of life. It's not divorced from it. It is entirely an organic part of collective endeavor, however you might call it, and to give them a true sense of what public affairs are for, what is the fight for, what is the argument for, and of course democracy, and where does that work? Because it's the crudest sense of democracy that someone gets elected and becomes an MNA or MPA in our society, and then you immediately in your mind see them in a large SUV, becoming one of the elites. When in fact a lot of people in politics that I've seen are dedicated servants of the public. However they see it, and it's also in a sense a demand-driven profession. So many people would say, who come to us and say that, don't you see the schools are so bad? I say, yes, I see them, and I've worked to fix them. But I also counter that question. I said, not once in my political life, my constituents came to me with the same question of that they wanted their local government school improved. I usually get requests for teacher transfers.
True.
And not for generalized improvement in their schools. So we have to travel a long way in understanding that how politics tries to fix things. And that is why I think the party I'm from, it is accused of being only interested in infrastructure. But there is a logical reason for it, that once you build it, it's unanswerable. It's there. No one can deny that it's done. and some improvement has taken place. So people have denigrated that also, but in a sense, our public understanding of democracy has to also evolve. It is still at a very crude stage of who becomes MNA or MPA or who gets into government. So one of my preoccupations in talking to young people has been to understand that what is it actually about and its utility, and how, as we all hope, in the long run, it will try to bring some improvement into the country. I was just in Karachi before this podcast, and Karachi is, baying, they are requesting for good roads. And in Lahore, people are cynical about good roads. They're like, another road built, so what? When they are, if you go to Karachi,
Embarrassment of the riches.
it is embarrassment of riches, and they are saying, oh my God, we have these properties worth billions, and there are gutters coming out, and it's awful, and it's smelly, and they are, so it's the question of, you see how politics is different everywhere, according to local conditions. So Karachi people would be very happy to have roads. And Lahore people are just completely cynical about it. So what if you build the roads? And the question is, in fact, and this is also something that I told young people and keep telling them, building roads is probably the easiest part of politics. The difficult part is economic policy. Difficult part is occasionally foreign policy, defense policy. Those are the sort of real thorny challenges.
I'm glad you said that, because and we've talked about it off camera many times, that in a country where delivery of services, general delivery of service is so badly broken, your MNA or MPA ends up being the conduit for providing of that service. That's why you talked about that people come to you because they want their gully nali to be repaired, or they want their child to be employed in a government institution as a teacher or as somebody else. So essentially that role has to be done in a state which doesn't have these things streamlined even as of now. Which also meant, and you said this already, that we should have had local governments, effective local governments, financially empowered local governments. But the track record of every political party, including yours, is that nobody really wants to part with the power that they have in provinces. Earlier, we used to have the argument that because center to province, there is no power transfer. But now that provinces have powers, they simply do not wish to give power away. And you're absolutely right. The real issues that you must deal with sitting in the parliament are what this country's future should look like, what our relations with other countries should be. So until we don't have that, our politicians will continue to do gully nali and provision of jobs.
Even if we have it, we will continue doing it. I mean, that's another part of it.
There'll be a small part of it.
But yeah, I mean, there's no argument against, there cannot be an argument against local government. It has to be there.
Why do you think political parties are not interested?
The MN MPs think that their powers will sort of be diluted, and more people will be there with some small parts of the political power that they currently hold. So they're generally suspicious of creating opponents for themselves, because there will be people who would then become aspirants once they are there in local government for higher office, for MP or MNA. So it's this question of they're saying, why bother? Really, I mean, many people I see, they say, why bother with local government? When in fact, there is no argument. It's absolutely necessary, because we need someone to fix the potholes at the local level. Political leaders, all of them, have to begin believing in democracy. For them, I think most of them, it is merely a way to get them into power. This understanding of, at least my understanding, which is still, of course, I'm a student of democracy and politics, is that democracy is not just electing people, it's actually involving the will of the people in how the government makes decisions. and at least to be affected by the will of the people, or to be sensitive to the will of the people and the welfare of the people when people are making decisions, to be aware of it. That's my view of democracy. I think the office of the Chief Minister needs to be rethought of how it is, how we hold it accountable and how we check their performance. There's a great gap in which all of Pakistan's media and the talking classes and the chattering classes, they're obsessed with the federal government, when in fact so much of the game is in provincial governments, and provincial governments practically get a free pass.
Absolutely. I think the power, if you compare even just of Punjab with the Federation, there's, you can't...
Absolutely no. I mean, Punjab government, alhamdulillah, has single departments which are bigger than the federal government, many times bigger than the whole of federal government. The public, I hope, will begin to evolve in a way. Their understanding is to have to start holding the provincial governments accountable and asking them questions of how they are managing.
I mean, that of course is another debate then, that even the forums that are available for them for accountability, which is provincial assemblies, we have a track record of chief ministers, and certainly from your political party more and more, not even showing up in the assemblies. So you have that. So when your own backbenchers and your committees cannot hold a provincial government accountable or a federal government accountable, how will other people do that? I know that you are a steadfast believer in constitutional democracy, and we see in our journey in Pakistan that the more we go towards democracy, or the more we go towards strengthening democracy in Pakistan, the more we realize that we're living in an era of more and more controlled democracy. So as a thinker more than as a practitioner, I'd like to ask you, what do you think is the answer? What do we do? Do we just, deal with it as a new normal, that we'll just live as in a controlled democracy? Or is there something, an ideal that we continue to at least work towards, not just yearn for it?
Probably, yeah. We have to learn to live with it until again the leaders of our political parties, all of them, begin to believe in Parliament as the foundational institution of the country. And so having been, Allah has been very kind to me to put me in the federal cabinet more than once. I can share that when you are in government, Parliament begins to seem like a nuisance that you have to deal with. It's not a nuisance. It is the source from where the government draws its genuine power. It is a connection between the government and the people. And so this, if we are to move forward, I'm not proposing there's a solution to the situation that we face these days, but if our leaders begin to strengthen Parliament, its committees, how it does its oversight. I've long been involved with you on how the parliamentary oversight of intelligence.
I think we know by now how to do it and how not to do it.
How not to do it. So the notion is that it's actually the leaders that have to begin to believe that this is the path we need to go. And not as a solution, but as strengthening that institution. And it's my view, again, and now I will inject my observation, is that once we begin to do it regularly, if it becomes a habit, then slowly you will see that the civilian space will increase. Another thing that our leaders need to understand, and not just my party, but every party suffers from it, is that parties have to have people who think seriously about the country's security and foreign policy. It cannot be outsourced permanently to an institution. So the civilian side has to equip itself with the expertise, or at least a basic knowledge of how the world operates, what are the security issues, defense issues that keep popping up.
Do you really think it's the lack of understanding of those issues? And I'll take you to the National Security Committee. You're aware of the role that certainly PILDAT played in making sure that at least we go towards an institutionalization of a forum like that, that we create a body at a level, under the Prime Minister, where a legitimate role of the armed forces in consulting them on defense and national security issues is there. And that committee was formed under Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. You've sat on that committee.
Yes.
On many occasions. Yes. And you've even talked to us, and I think some of it is in public domain as well, and how much, especially under Prime Minister Shahid Khaqan Abbasi, who very regularly held meetings of NSE, how many times you tried to have a dialogue, and then what came of it? It's not that the civilians lacked understanding of issues.
No, but civilians...
Were you stonewalled?
No,
tell us about it.
Stonewalled. It's that the civilians have to persist and equip and educate themselves to asking the right questions. And so nothing is going to be, it's now a cliche, but going to be done overnight. Nothing's going to be done overnight. It has to be a process in which you keep challenging. The armed forces are welcome to challenge us if we put forth our understanding of certain issues, and we should be open to challenging them if we disagree. And some of it did take place, but I think most of the time it was the sense of true dialogue not happening. Mainly because, not that we lacked understanding, most of the time we lacked information, real information.
You also served as Minister of Defense.
Yes, precisely.
What was that like?
One of my most pleasant experiences. I consider it one of my ministerial...
The constitutional civilian boss of our valiant armed forces and Ministry of Defense. Yes. Any anecdotes, anything which talks about how well you were able to oversee and carry out your job? I know how well you did your job as Commerce Minister.
Many anecdotes, but what I've felt that, again, it's this, I would say, knowledgeable persistence that got me through defense. So in the beginning, we were not understanding each other. But then when I persisted, things begin to move. So it's a question of the Prime Minister backing his or her defense minister, and also this notion that should be given out by the Prime Minister is the key person here, that all issues regarding the defense of the country will come to him through the Ministry of Defense and the Defense Minister.
Is it a divergence of opinion or an issue of perceptions that's at the heart of this relationship, civil and military?
Part of it, yes. Part of it is this notion that the political parties are not really organized institutions to deal with these things. But it's not something that could not be resolved in, I would say, 10 years or 5 years. If there was a Prime Minister who backed their defense minister and made sure that, and the signal also went out to the armed forces that everything has to be channeled through the defense minister, I think you will begin to see real change. Instinct from the armed forces that they would rather deal with the head of government directly than through a civilian.
And the same instinct is not with their civilian counterpart?
No, I mean, the notion is that most of the time, if you look at those who have been defense ministers of Pakistan, they have been also Pakistan's chief executives and presidents.
Yes. Prime ministers have kept that portfolio for themselves.
In order to have the direct interaction. So this insertion of another person, the Minister of Defense, who of course holds all the regulatory and constitutional authority. So they have tried to avoid that complexity and deal directly with the head. But again, it's again like this notion of how do we move towards the notion of democracy as laid out in the preamble to the Constitution is to have political parties to be, first of all, aware of this issue, not to outsource defense and security just to the armed forces, to have expertise themselves, develop expertise, have people who have expertise, and also to strengthen Parliament. This might not be the whole solution, but it could be the part of the solution.
Now, Khurram Sahab, I know again something that I can vouch for, and I know your views on it, and certainly your party's view, and a view held by many in Pakistan, that Pakistan is not going to be able to fully develop or prosper until we have good relations with our neighbors. And that's been the cornerstone of PMLN's policy, certainly vis-a-vis India. And you, as Commerce Minister, went very close to signing the MFN.
What we call the normalizing trade relations.
Yes, that we, talk, fight. That close.
Yeah, the only regret is that we should have done it there and then. And it's a great lesson in public policy and how to manage it. We had a rare opportunity because the then Manmohan Singh government, which was on its way out, needed it more than we did. So they were very amenable and surprisingly agreed with most of what we asked for.
What changed? You went there with the full intention of doing this.
I still have no real evidence of what happened because we actually had put it on the cabinet's agenda. It was already there. It would have been a historic cabinet. Item 3, normalization of trade with India. I still don't know what made Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif pull back from it. I have many rumors, but still no verification. We should have done it there and then. Because what happened was that 3 months down the line, Modi came in, and that day onwards, all relations just degenerated to the point that we see today. Completely. So actually Modi happened to Pakistan's trade relation. Another thing is, I think we should be very clear that this notion to have better relations with neighbors, including India, is not for love of India, is to have Pakistan to have greater economic growth. It's a way to essentially charge our economy because in many parts of Pakistan, there are industries which would benefit massively from exporting to India. And this openness to the world is something that our governments rarely enunciate clearly, that we desperately need. I mean, one of the reasons that we are not growing is that because we are not open to the world. Our governance systems are obsolete. The world doesn't want to invest in Pakistan. In fact, what we are seeing is that now slowly over the last 3 years particularly, that people are slowly, at least Western companies, are finding it difficult to operate. So we have to rethink how we govern, and part of that rethinking is that foreign policy aspect of having good trade relations with your neighbors. But I think Modi put a massive wrench into that wheel 11 years ago, and that wheel hasn't moved since.
So in many ways, in economy as well as just as you talked about putting Parliament first and putting, strengthening the institutions, in many ways, I think our tragedy is that we're 2 steps forward and multiple steps back. We, endeavor to do something and then we dither from it. Then we endeavor to do something, take a few steps and we come back.
So the solution is to keep trying, is to keep an open mind. I mean, one of the things that I have advocated recently, because India has dealt badly with its neighbors, be it Bangladesh that we have seen, also Nepal, Sri Lanka. So Pakistan also has this opportunity, and I've actually written about it, to say that we want to have good relations with our South Asian neighbors.
SAFTA without India?
Yeah, South Asia without India, and just open your borders up for travel, for trade, and say, fine, you know, zero tariff for Sri Lanka and Nepal and Bhutan and Bangladesh. So Pakistan has to take certain steps to take that leadership, to jolt also our economy, which I think is going to benefit from it with this openness, and also to have a regional approach which will, to my mind, will have very good effects when we are dealing with Afghanistan and Central Asia. But we are very sort of hesitant in our approaches when it comes to opening up. Somehow we always find excuses not to open up. We are scared.
In terms of economy, Afghanistan, which was completely dependent on Pakistan for trade, you know, landlocked Afghanistan. Even then we didn't allow so many things that we could have allowed. And now we see, and it's of course a little bit beyond economy now, this is now a completely security nightmarish issue that we could possibly think of, a two-front, hot fronts on both sides. We can understand that where we are vis-a-vis Afghanistan today is perhaps we're reaping whatever policy we had earlier. But you are very much sitting in the policy-making circles and certainly a thinking individual. Are we just responding and reacting to what's happening in Afghanistan? Or is there a rethink about what our policy, future policy towards Afghanistan should be?
We made a very serious effort with Afghanistan. First bilaterally, then trilaterally with China, and now the last-ditch effort was the Moscow process, in which many other countries, including Soviet Union, Iran, were involved. But the government in Afghanistan has been there for 4 years now. They have not responded. Their incentive structure apparently is rigged the other way.
No, so essentially our policymakers completely miscalculated what TTA's relationship with TTP is, and whether they'll be able to give them up. We thought that they will, and the entire edifice of our policy was based on that. Yes. And that seems to be the key sticking point, which is, you know, we're dealing with so much death and destruction now.
There is no TTA or TTP, it's just TT.
So their ideology is prevailing way more than what we thought our relationship with them will be.
Yes, and they, whatever support or refuge we offered them, in hope of the situation that we are having now, has backfired on us. So it's this notion of not appeasing terrorists. I think that is what the takeaway from this massive debacle that we face today. Is that you cannot appease terrorists.
No, that's, to be honest, I think that's something that the entire nation can stand behind.
So it's this notion of not to justify or try to make excuses for them. They are not our long-lost brothers. And this notion that somehow, even if they are across the border, since they speak the same language and the same culture, I've also written about this and said that, you know, they have to be dealt with like a sovereign country, which is actually more hostile than friendly, has been for a while, and has to be dealt with.
Almost to the Zahir Shah's time. I mean, if you see some of the biases that actually creep in, it's like the past few decades didn't even happen.
So just as I wrote of South Asia without India, Even earlier, I wrote Afghanistan without illusions. I think we have been prey to these illusions of same language, same culture, and this impression in Afghanistan that we favor one ethnic group over the other. We talk about anecdotes. One of my anecdotes has been that whoever is sent to Afghanistan as ambassador of Pakistan should always wear a suit and a tie. Don't try to be native. You are representative of a different country. And to impress upon your hosts that, I'm from a different country. So don't try to blend in, don't go native, and maintain. It's a very trivial example of what my view is, but that's how you impress upon your neighbor that we are not.
I think so far we were counting on our similarities more than our differences. Yeah.
But it's been clear to me for a while. I don't know if you have time for an anecdote, but
no, this would be so much fun.
In April 15, I made my first visit to Afghanistan as Commerce Minister. Earlier in November 14, Ashraf Ghani, who had just been elected, was hosted by Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, feted, cricket match, very friendly, all-out effort by Pakistan to sort of have good relations. So there was a list was given to us that these are the things commerce needs to do, and in fact in the next 4 months we did most of them. So I thought since I'd done most of them, they needed some facilitation at Karachi, better transport arrangements. So I went to Kabul to with this basket of goodies. Look, we have done what you asked for. Excellent visit, but the very final meeting with President Ashraf Ghani was a disaster, because I go to him and I tell him that we have done what most of what you asked for, and most of what is left will be done later this year. So he asked me, Mr. Minister, what do you want? I said, we have this pending trilateral transit trade agreement with Tajikistan, and we need your signature, and you are somehow hesitating. So he said, we will not do it without India. This is April 15, 2015. He said, we will not do it without India. So I said him exactly in these words, I said, Mr. President, if you put India on the table, everything else goes off the table. So don't put India on the table. We have this great opportunity. There's Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. You are here. Good relations. Let's get this done. And I still remember, with this exactly the same gesture I'm going to make now, I said, later if our relations improve with India, we can always plug it in. But let's do our arrangement. He got very angry. He said, you support the Taliban, who are hurting me, because it was the spring offensive had started. And he went on and on. And I still said to him, Mr. President, don't waste this opportunity. Let's get this done. And once we have the trilateral, we can talk about India later. But he would not do it. So even then, India was a major presence in Kabul, which it is today. So, as I see it now, with retrospect, the regime has changed. India's presence hasn't changed. And that is something that we should have been more aware of. I think that's one of the illusions that we have been suffering from, is that India's deep penetration of Afghanistan, which
has not been new.
Which is not new.
Yeah.
As I said, I'm talking about it a decade ago. So
yeah,
I should have been more aware of it.
You talked about this, the change that we see, at least now, vis-a-vis Afghanistan, that deal with terrorists as they should be dealt with. And I, even though not in the same vein, but I wish to ask you of what's your understanding of the origin of religious intolerance in Pakistan? And we've seen that spilled out it's so painful that our law enforcement agencies are actually treated in their hands like the enemy. Enemy police forces.
Who is the actual shaheed?
This policy that we deal with this sternly, we deal with terrorism sternly. This is also our homegrown terrorism, as many versions of it, 2.0, 4.0, whatever you may wish to call it. Do you see that that policy is going to be implemented or is being implemented with our religious intolerance as well?
I hope so, because essentially what happened, I think looking back at Pakistan's history, trace it to practically Pakistan's agreeing to host the Afghan jihad on our soil. And the word jihad, what it does is justifies violence.
Now, use of religion to
for violence. But at the same time, since we in Pakistan desire to have a functioning state, a functioning state requires, as Max Weber says, that only the state holds the monopoly on legitimate violence.
Yes.
And once in that first Afghan jihad, I think the state then consciously gave up that monopoly.
What do you understand of the phenomenon of rise of PTI? And wherever they are today, considering that PTI is still the most popular political party as we speak, they are the party which is facing the wrath of the establishment right now.
That requires a separate podcast on, I see it somewhat controversially as the rise of a fascist party in this country. The fascists are...
A manufactured rise?
Yes, a manufactured rise. A manufactured rise that, a part of that rise was a conscious delegitimization of politics, of this demonization of, I won't say that these are lily-white parties by any stretch of imagination, PMLN, People's Party, but their demonization and this notion that if we destroy them, Pakistan will be fixed. And the party as a vehicle of young people's frustrations, I think it's there, that too is part of it. And this notion that this party was very early able to capitalize on this direct communication through mobile phone with the young. They might be under pressure from the state, but that doesn't mean that if they're victims, they're innocent. They are more willing to use violence for their political means, but to them also democracy is simply a means of getting into power.
No, I think that you partly addressed when you said that no political party is, everyone's kind of falling in line to deal with the reality of controlled democracy. PTI, of course, we know is no different. But here is a electorate, and here is a largely young population, urban, educated, which is not letting go of its support for the parties.
To many people who were supporters of PTI, when I asked them, why don't you move to the nirvana that they have built in KP over 13 years? But they want to stay in Lahore. They don't want to move to KP. They don't want to go to Bardan.
That's where governments are made.
So they don't want.
Why would they want to go to?
So they don't want to go to the nirvana. Whatever that party could build is visible in KP today. So if you find it attractive,
I think the question really is, how do you see that playing out for the future of?
So the future is irrational, because if the electorate was rational, if young people were rational, and if they saw the horrors of KP, they would be cured of that cult-like following that they have for PTI. But they are not. It's very clear to me. So they want to, it's the same thing of, they want to enjoy this massive and beautiful infrastructure in Lahore, but they resent it. It's like, PTI, why? What I would really like to know is what is the rational reason for supporting PTI? Do they want destruction of Pakistan?
I think that's the PTI winning with its narrative. It's as simple as that.
What is the narrative?
That everyone else is corrupt. It's as simple as
destroy the armed forces?
It's the most simplistic way of garnering support.
When in fact, their 13 years in KP have been the most corrupt that anyone can think of. But no one wants to talk about that because apparently rational argument is not for PTI's followers. You can't argue with them. I've stopped arguing with them long ago.
You've won multiple elections from Gujranwala, from 2008 to 2018. And only now, just last year, of course, before you won 2008, you did taste defeat before that. But what does this loss feel like in 2024? And what do you think led to that? Gujranwala is considered the stronghold of PMLN for such a long time. What, if you look at it, what contributed to that? And I say that as somebody who was very sad to not see you in Parliament.
I have multiple theories, but truth is I really do not know. We had absolute no real indication of this from the streets while we were, even before the election, contesting the election, going around campaigning. So there was this hidden resentment that came out. If we believe that the polling process was fair. There are some questions on that also. I've challenged my election in court. We'll see how that goes. But the truth is, it is yet to be determined what really happened. No one has explained it to me. Most people are as perplexed as I am because the person who was opposing me had absolutely no roots in the constituency. None.
So the enigmas of
the enigma
2024 election.
2024. So my election is also one of the enigmas of why it happened. There are also some rather extracurricular theories that I'm not going to.
I know. I'll quote Shah Mahmood Qureshi, who famously once said, he said, ये अजीब तमाशा है, हम जीत जाते हैं तो हमें पता नहीं होता है कि हम कैसे जीते हैं और हार जाते हैं तो पता नहीं चलता है कि कैसे हारे.
Yes, it's an open question.
Any parting thoughts?
My message is that is to ask people to put themselves in what was in their mind on the morning of May the 6th. Was a dejected, depressed country which had almost lost hope in its prospects. Marka-e-Haq happens, and suddenly the state of Pakistan demonstrates a hidden competence and power that no one thought it had. And by defeating an India that is at least 10 times larger by every metric you can think of, Pakistan has, to my mind, gained confidence as a nation. So my parting thought for young people is, do not give up on your country. It has strengths. Young supporters of these fascist parties are also justifiers of violence. They also justify violence. So why aren't our youth more progressive? Why aren't they more tolerant and more tolerant of religious diversity, more tolerant of cultural diversity, more tolerant of, or at least more proponents of the arts and how, we are very rich in literary and artistic history. But all we see are just crude encomiums and calls for, jalado, gharado, if we have sufficient number of young people who decide to keep faith and fight for this country instead of fighting for a cult, I think we'll have a better Pakistan.
You were part of the delegation right after Marka-e-Haq.
Yeah.
Operation Bunyan al-Marsoos.
Yes.
And of course, we've all read about, read the headlines and everything, but I'd like to ask you, what was your personal experience? What struck you as the key sentiment in the capitals that you visited?
Everyone praised two words: Pakistan's transparency and wisdom. So transparency was how we managed the media operation during Marka-e-Haq. We were much more open. And not just in Islamabad, that's what I found out, is that our ambassadors across the world were briefing they were directed by Islamabad to brief their host countries regularly, like every 2 days or 3 days. So this openness, and there's an anecdote there also.
Please.
Is that, I will not name the country, actually the event in Islamabad happened. The attaches of some certain important countries, they say we are forced to relay your press conferences to our capitals because nothing on the other side.
That's true. I think that we.
So they say there's nothing on the other side. So all we have is Pakistan to go on, and that's what.
Other side kind of lost the plot.
Yes. So that's one thing. The second thing that there was Pakistan's restraint on May the 10th on not going nuclear, very frankly. Pakistan had every logic and rationale.
Yes.
But Pakistan didn't go.
After the attack in Rawalpindi, yes. Absolutely.
That restraint, which we very rarely spell out, but the world, of course, has noticed. So everywhere we went to this Pakistan.
Hence the world rushing in to put a stop to it.
We were in Washington, and in this beautiful sweet spot of not being supplicants for aid.
That must be really good.
That was great. That was wonderful. The only resistance that we had was from what you could call American bureaucracy. There was some resistance there, and some think tank people with which I had a direct sort of 2-hour argument. The Europeans did show their humane side by their very strong advocacy of going back into India's going back into the Indus Water Treaty. They were really worried about the water issues.
Thank you very much. I'm very conscious of the time.